Caleb Hart had always been different from the other cowboys who rode the long trails of the New Mexico territory. While most men his age lived loudly, bragged often, and tried to prove themselves at every chance, Caleb preferred quiet mornings, steady work, and the company of horses more than people. He came from a small ranching family in Texas, and though life had never been easy, he had learned early that dignity and respect were just as important as strength. Many cowboys avoided the native tribes who lived across the land, but Caleb did not share their fears. He believed that a person should be judged by actions, not by stories told by others. Over the years, he had seen the Apache people trading, riding, and working the land with a discipline that reminded him of home. Still, he kept a respectful distance, only nodding or offering a polite wave whenever their paths crossed. One warm afternoon, Caleb was checking the cattle lines when he noticed something unusual in the distance, small shapes moving in the dust, far from any village or camp. He guided his horse closer, and soon realized they were Apache children. They looked tired and frightened, their faces dusty, their breaths quick. Caleb gently approached and asked what had happened. The children spoke in quiet, shaken voices, explaining that a sudden desert storm had separated them from their older relatives during a hunting trip. When the wind finally settled, they found themselves lost, unsure which direction led home. Caleb's heart tightened. He knew how harsh the desert could be for grown men, let alone young children. He offered them water from his canteen and tried to think clearly. The desert sky was open and calm again, but the trails were confusing, and they had walked far from familiar ground. Still, Caleb felt certain he could find their people if he followed the signs. Tracks, broken twigs, marks in the ground, things most riders overlooked. He spoke gently, telling the children he would take them home. They trusted him quickly, perhaps sensing his sincerity. He lifted the smallest child onto his horse, and the others walked beside him as he searched for trails. The sun moved slowly across the sky as they traveled, and the desert grew quiet around them. Caleb kept his focus sharp, watching every detail. After several hours, he finally spotted prints that seemed fresh enough to follow. The children grew hopeful, asking if he truly knew the way. Caleb smiled softly and told them he believed he did. Bit by bit, the trail became clearer. The children pointed out familiar stones and plants, signs they recognized from earlier that morning. Caleb felt a wave of relief. They were getting close. By dusk, the shape of an Apache camp appeared in the distance. Fires were lit, and several adults stood scanning the horizon, clearly worried. When they saw the children walking in with Caleb, the entire camp shifted from fear to deep relief. Mothers hurried forward, embracing their children, holding them as if afraid to let go again. Caleb stepped back a little, giving families space. He felt glad to have helped, but he did not expect anything in return. To him, the moment was simple. Children needed help, and he was there at the right time. Then he saw a tall, dignified man walking toward him. This man moved with quiet strength and carried himself like someone deeply respected. Caleb did not know his name, but the way the others made room for him made it clear that he was the leader. The man introduced himself as Chief Dasodaha. His voice was steady, and his eyes held both wisdom and curiosity. He asked Caleb how he found the children, and Caleb explained everything calmly, avoiding any grand detail. He did not brag or try to impress. He simply stated what happened. Chief Dasodaha listened carefully. When Caleb finished, the chief nodded with a slow, thoughtful expression. He then spoke words Caleb did not expect. He said that Caleb had earned great honor among his people. In Apache belief, when someone protected children or helped a family in a time of fear, it was not something small. It created a bond of gratitude that must be acknowledged. The chief invited Caleb to sit with them that evening. At first, Caleb hesitated, unsure if he should intrude, but the chief insisted, and soon the entire camp gathered near the central fire. The children told the story from their point of view, describing how worried and lost they had been before Caleb appeared. Their voices trembled not from fear anymore but from relief. Food was shared, and people smiled, grateful that the day had ended with everyone safe. Caleb felt humbled. He was not used to attention or praise. In fact, he preferred to slip away unnoticed. But tonight, leaving early would have seemed rude. So he stayed, listening to stories and observing the way the Apache people treated one another with care and respect. The chief's daughters sat nearby, each with her own quiet presence. The oldest daughter, Nalin, had calm and thoughtful eyes. She often looked as though she understood far more than she said. Ayla, the middle daughter, sat with the confidence of someone unafraid of anything. She seemed curious about Caleb, watching him with interest. The youngest, Taya, had a peaceful manner, almost like she sensed emotions in others and chose her words with great care. Caleb noticed their differences but kept his attention respectful and polite. He did not want to seem forward or improper, especially among people who had welcomed him kindly. As the fire crackled and the night grew deep, Chief Dasodaha stood before the gathering. His presence commanded silence. He spoke of community, family, and the responsibility adults have to protect the young. Then, turning toward Caleb, the chief said something that made every person in the circle stop breathing for a moment. He said that Caleb had demonstrated great character, not just by finding the children, but by treating them with gentleness and patience. He had shown a heart that valued life and goodwill. Because of this, Chief Dasodaha felt that a true debt of honor had been created, one that required meaningful acknowledgement. The chief lifted his hand and spoke loudly enough for all to hear. "Choose any of my daughters. Cowboy, you deserve it." The words struck Caleb like a sudden wind. He had helped without expecting anything, let alone such an extraordinary offer. The camp grew completely silent, waiting for his response. Caleb's breath caught in his throat. He felt unprepared, confused, grateful, and overwhelmed all at once. He glanced at the daughters, who looked equally surprised. None of them had expected the chief to speak like that so openly. Ayla's brows lifted in astonishment. Nalin's eyes widened slightly. Taya looked down, unsure what to think. Caleb swallowed hard, trying to understand what the moment meant. He respected the chief deeply, and knew that rejecting such an offer without care could seem insulting, but he also felt unsure if he had any right to accept something so personal, so important. The fire glowed softly, shadows dancing across the faces around him. Every person waited for Caleb's next move, but he had no words yet. All he knew was that tomorrow would bring questions, decisions, and feelings he never expected to face on a simple day of checking cattle lines. The night's warmth settled around him, and though he sat among many people, Caleb felt alone with the weight of the chief's offer. The story had only begun, and he sensed that whatever happened next would change his life forever. Caleb barely slept that night. The chief's unexpected offer echoed in his mind again and again. He kept replaying the scene, the firelight, the silent crowd, the chief's steady voice. He had helped the children because it was the right thing to do, not because he hoped for a reward, and certainly not a life-changing offer like joining the chief's family. When the first soft rays of morning touched the camp, Caleb stepped outside his small tent and breathed in the cool air. The Apache camp was already beginning to stir. Women prepared morning meals, children carried water, and a few older men sat repairing tools. Everything felt calm and purposeful. Yet Caleb sensed a new tension in the air, one caused by him. He saw the chief speaking with a group of elders. They occasionally glanced in his direction, not with unfriendly eyes, but with a kind of cautious curiosity. Some seemed unsure, others thoughtful. It was clear the entire camp was waiting to see what he would do next. Caleb walked toward a quiet spot near a small stream. He needed space to think. It was there that Nalin, the chief's eldest daughter, approached him. She carried a bowl of warm bread and gently offered it to him. Caleb thanked her, and she sat down nearby. Not too close, but close enough that he knew she wished to speak. She told him that her father's words came from deep respect. In their culture, gratitude for a meaningful act had to be expressed with sincerity. If a person saved or protected someone dear, the family often showed appreciation in ways that honored that bond. She explained it calmly, hoping he would understand. Caleb listened quietly, He appreciated her honesty, yet he still felt unready. He told her he respected the chief deeply, and he admired their traditions. But he worried that accepting such an offer without true understanding could bring harm instead of unity. Nalin smiled softly, saying she admired his careful nature. She assured him that no one wanted him to choose out of pressure. The choice had to come from the heart. After she left, Ayla approached. She walked with confidence, her steps strong and energetic. She did not sit right away but stood with her hands on her hips, studying him with a curious expression. Ayla spoke boldly, telling him that she would not want to be chosen like a reward. If someone chose her, she wanted it to be because of genuine admiration, not because of tradition. She told him she respected his courage and how he cared for the children, but she wanted him to know that each daughter had dreams of her own. She laughed lightly, saying she was far too spirited to simply follow a stranger without understanding who he truly was. Caleb found her honesty refreshing. She reminded him of the open desert wind, strong, brave, and unpredictable. Later, Taya, the youngest, approached him. She moved quietly, almost like a soft breeze. She carried a small handmade charm, shaped from tiny stones and thread. Without a word, she placed it in his hand. Caleb looked at her, puzzled. Taya explained in a gentle voice that the charm was meant to bring calm to the heart when the mind felt heavy. She did not pressure him to choose or decide. Instead, she simply wished for him to feel at peace. Her kindness touched him deeply. She seemed to sense his emotions without him saying a single word. Caleb thanked her with sincere gratitude, and she smiled softly before slipping away, giving him space to think. As the morning grew brighter, Caleb walked through the camp, noticing how people continued with their daily tasks, though many watched him from time to time. Some faces showed curiosity, others hope, and a few looked cautious, uncertain about what his choice might mean for their community. Throughout the day, he tried to help where he could, carrying water for an older man, offering assistance with tasks, and showing the same respectful nature he always carried. The Apache people noticed these small gestures. Slowly, the tension eased, and kindness filled the camp once again. But the question remained, heavy on his shoulders. What would he do? That afternoon, the chief asked to meet with him privately. They sat under a large old tree at the edge of the camp, where the sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating soft patterns on the ground. The chief looked calm, but his eyes held a depth that made Caleb feel seen and understood. The chief explained that the offer was not meant to pressure him or cause discomfort. It was a symbol, a way of showing the highest respect. A bond created through gratitude was considered sacred, but he told Caleb something else as well. No one should ever choose a path that does not feel right within. Caleb took a deep breath and opened his heart. He told the chief that he felt honored by the trust and warmth he had received. He explained that he admired the daughters, each for different reasons, but choosing someone for such an important bond required more than gratitude. It needed genuine connection and understanding. He did not want to make a decision that caused confusion or sadness later. The chief listened without interrupting. When Caleb finished, the chief smiled kindly. He said that true honor was found not in accepting a gift blindly, but in choosing with thoughtfulness and care. He told Caleb that if he wished to stay in the camp for a few days to learn more, he was welcome. If he wished to leave, he could do so with respect. The choice was completely his. Caleb decided to stay for a little while. He believed that understanding the people better would help him find the right answer. Over the next days, he spent time with each of the daughters, not to choose one quickly, but to understand who they were as individuals. Nalin showed him how she created beautiful beadwork and how each color carried meaning. She spoke about patience, balance, and the stories passed down through generations. Her presence was calm and wise, and Caleb found comfort in her steady nature. Ayla brought him along on morning rides. She taught him the paths she took through the hills and how she read the signs of weather by watching the sky. She joked often, laughed freely, and brought a spark of bright energy to every moment. With her, Caleb felt the joy of moving freely, almost like he was seeing the world with new eyes. Taya invited him to sit by the stream where she often prayed or reflected. She told him how she felt the world through emotions, how she believed the earth spoke in quiet ways. She shared stories of her hopes and dreams, and Caleb appreciated how deeply she cared about harmony and kindness. Each daughter touched his heart in a different way, and Caleb respected all three equally. But he knew he could not choose all of them. He had to choose the one whose spirit felt closest to his own. On the fourth evening, after a long day of learning and reflecting, Caleb found himself walking beside Taya. They spoke softly, watching the gentle flow of the stream. She listened to him carefully as he shared his doubts and hopes. She did not rush him or try to guide him, she simply understood, as if she could feel his heart. Caleb realized something then. Peace was what he valued most. He had spent his life in quiet places, finding comfort in gentle moments rather than loud ones. Taya's calm presence matched his nature. Her kindness echoed what he felt inside. The connection between them was gentle, steady, and honest. That night, when the chief invited him to speak before the camp, Caleb stood with new confidence. He thanked everyone for their kindness, their patience, and their welcome. Then, with sincere respect, he said he wished to build a bond with Taya, not because she was offered to him, but because he truly admired and understood her. The camp nodded in acceptance, and Taya's quiet smile radiated warmth. The chief placed a hand on Caleb's shoulder, pleased with the honesty of his choice. Caleb did not know what the future held, but as he stood beside Taya in the warm glow of the firelight, he felt something he rarely felt in his life: peace, belonging, and the beginning of a new chapter he had never expected to find.